the end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
A drug-resistant superbug has arrived in the U.S. Health officials reported the first case of a U.S. patient infected with the bacteria that is resistant to a last-resort antibiotic called colistin, which is reserved for use against nightmare bacteria. The superbug was detected in a 49-year-old Pennsylvania woman who went to a clinic in April for a urinary tract infection. Health experts have grave concerns that the dreaded bacteria could pose serious dangers for routine infections if it spreads.
Here in the United States, there is now a confirmed case of a superbug that no antibiotic can apparently combat. A Pennsylvania woman has developed an infection that officials call, quote, a nightmare bacteria. CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden sounded the alarm today, saying that this antibiotic-resistant strain could be, quote, the end of the road for antibiotics. Let's bring in CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, do we know how this woman became infected, and what do we know about this so-called nightmare bacteria?
Well, we don't know how this woman became infected. What we do know is that she went to a clinic. She was not in the hospital when this bacteria was found. We also know that she hadn't been traveling overseas, so this isn't something that could have been brought back from another country, for example. So typically what happens is when there's a lot of antibiotic use in a community, bacteria become resistant. This particular bacteria, something known as E. coli, something we've talked about a lot, does have a lot of different classes of antibiotics to try and treat it, at least 7 different types of antibiotics, not just antibiotics, but entire classes of antibiotics. And this particular bacteria didn't respond to any of those, and that's the big concern. I will tell you, Jake, people have been anticipating something like this happening for some time, and we don't know that for her, her immune system may still fight off this bacteria, but I think it's a little bit of a indication of what might be to come, more of these types of bacteria.
And what does it take to theoretically develop a new antibiotic that might be able to fight this new strain?
Well, there's sort of 3 ways to look at this. One is that are there existing classes of antibiotics that you bolster up, that you make more powerful? The class of antibiotics works, it's just not strong enough. The second thing is that is there something that's an entirely new class of antibiotic, a new synthesized class of antibiotic? You look at this bacteria, figure out how to synthesize an antibiotic to try and treat it. And then finally, looking to nature. I mean, there's been a lot of expeditions to various parts of the world, within rainforests, within the depths of the ocean, to see if you can find material that could be sort of the boilerplate or the genesis of an entirely new antibiotic. And that's ongoing. I mean, there may be things that are sort of in the pipeline, but not quite ready yet, and certainly, that's the hope, Jake.
All new at 10, a health warning this Memorial Day weekend as we get word of 8 more cases of measles. That brings the total number to 10 from the outbreak at a private detention center in Eloy. And here's where you may have been exposed from the new cases. Apostolic Assembly Church in Eloy, Vias Oasis High School graduation in Tulloch, and Cottonwood Medical Center in Casa Grande. 2 locations affected by the previous 2 cases is Harrah's Action Casino or the AM/PM on I-10 in Florence. You will want to keep an eye out for rash or fever and call the ER before you get there.
We are on Etna, the dynamic, ever-changing fire and ice Etna, and today it is erupting from the central crater. It's magnificent.
The southern plains are reeling this morning from another blast of damaging storms. Several tornadoes touched down yesterday in northern Kansas. At least one person has died. Dozens of homes may be damaged or destroyed. Severe weather threatens more than 60 million people today in the central United States. Omar Biafranca is in Abilene, Kansas, with how people escaped the storm's path. Omar, good morning.
Good morning. A powerful storm that went through here shredded homes and barns and scattered debris for as far as the eye can see. Emergency crews spent the night looking for injured residents after that storm system spawned a tornado that was on the ground for 90 minutes. Rumbling out of control. A second round of massive tornadoes slashed its way through northern Kansas Wednesday.
Large tornado!
At least one twister was spotted in Abilene. It made its way across Interstate 70, forcing cars and trucks to turn around. Storms destroyed at least one home near there.
That's a barn sitting in the road, folks.
Up to 25 others suffered significant damage in Dickinson County last night.
Yeah, it's definitely going northeast.
There were tornado sightings near Solomon. Just east from there, a twister around a half-mile wide barely missed the city of Chapman.
Oh, I think that was somebody's house.
Further south, powerful strikes of lightning revealed this funnel in the darkness near Enid, Oklahoma.
This barn behind me used to house farming equipment, but you can see it's really just a pile of broken wood and twisted metal now. And weather officials are saying this wasn't even caused by a tornado, but by strong winds. And there's more of this type of weather that can do this type of damage in today's forecast.
Tornadoes, damaging winds, and powerful strikes of lightning continued to punish the central U.S. Thursday.
That's Highway 6, underwater.
This tornado plowed through Bryan, Texas, tearing through power lines and ripping the roof off this home.
Very scary, very thankful to be alive.
More than 60 homes suffered damage. The Ponzios family house is barely standing.
Everything is wiped out. Boxing some up, you try to figure, what do I take and what do I leave? 29 years gone in just a flash.
More than 14 inches of rain in parts of the state triggered flash flooding, prompting dozens of rescues.
Oh my gosh, look at them.
Cars were submerged as highways overflowed with water.
We were going to turn around and go back in that direction, and it looks like more of the same that way, so we're back here.
Here in Kansas, at least 5 more tornadoes were reported Thursday. The devastating storms have damaged or destroyed dozens of homes here and left thousands without power.
You could hear it ripping things apart. Honestly, didn't think it would be this bad.
Stop back, hold, hover. Holding lines coming taut. Loads coming off the ground. Clear for extraction. Hoist up. Hoist running. Access clear. Nice and slow. Got wires at the 12. Load is stable. Yeah, inside. Load is approaching halfway up. Nice and easy.
Decision.
Decision check. This is good pace. Okay.
A group of 11 people, including some kids, were injured by a lightning strike in a popular park in Paris on Saturday. They were actually seeking shelter under a tree when the strike happened. 9 of them were apparently knocked unconscious when responders got to the scene. Now, guys, this sounds like it possibly could have been a side flash since lightning struck the tree first. So that's very typical, certainly can cause a lot of injuries. But the more common strike where people get hurt is a ground current. So it could have been a ground current, but some of these, again, people are fighting for their lives. There really is no safe place to be outdoors during a thunderstorm. Another example this weekend in Western Germany, where more than 30 were injured during a kids' soccer match. According to the AP, the referee took a direct hit and had to be revived at the scene in this case. Witnesses say that there were apparently no clouds in the sky, so this possibly could have been a bolt from the blue. They've actually been documented to travel up to 25 miles away from a storm cloud, so we just really hope in both of these instances that everyone will be okay.
Hey, have you ever seen clouds like this before? I mean, these things are absolutely unbelievable to see with the naked eye, and trust me, the photos don't even do them justice, because when you see these in person, you really think the apocalypse is coming, right? And especially ones that are this well defined that we saw near Dodge City a couple of days ago. And we've seen a lot of examples of these clouds with the thunderstorms that we've had in the plains over the last couple of days. Let me explain what these are. They're called mammatus clouds, okay? And they form on the underside of the anvil of the storm. So basically what that means is it doesn't necessarily mean that bad things are going to happen when you see them. Sometimes you'll have a storm go through and then you'll see the clouds. Sometimes you'll see the clouds and then a storm will come through. Sometimes you don't even get affected by the storm at all.
NOAA has just released their numbers for the upcoming hurricane season, their predictions on how active this season will be, and they've actually predicted a very normal season. 10 to 16 named storms, 4 to 8 hurricanes, and 1 to 4 major storms. It's pretty much all in line with what the other agencies are saying, 12 to 14 named storms. Now, a normal year, you may say, so what? But it's actually been a while since we've had a normal year. You have to go back to 2012. Ever since then, we have had below normal seasons. So forecasting a normal season this year will actually mean more storms, possibly. One reason we have had some pretty slow years is because of El Nino. The jet stream shifts to the south during an El Nino year, increasing the wind shear, which will rip those storms apart. But we are forecasted to go into La Nina, which means that jet stream will shift back up to the north. We'll have decrease in wind shear, and it could be just that perfect environment to get some of the storms going in the Atlantic.
On Saturday in southern China's Guangdong province, a bridge was washed away by powerful floods, bringing down a bus with 9 passengers on board. 2 passengers were wounded. Thankfully, none were killed.
At around 1 a.m., the bridge broke and then the bus fell into the river. The pillars of the bridge were also destroyed.
Nearly 200,000 locals are inconvenienced by this broken bridge. Repairs are underway, but some people risk their lives by wading across the river. Also in southern China, in Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, a villager was swept off a bridge into a bamboo forest nearby. The rushing river and unforeseeable deep holes underwater make rescue efforts difficult. When the firefighters approached the trapped man, he couldn't stop trembling from the cold. In southwestern Yunnan province, a huge rock weighing 240 tons rolled onto the road, bringing about a massive traffic congestion. Nearly 200 vehicles were choked. Traffic only continued once the 4-meter-high rock was broken up in the explosion. At present, water levels on the middle and lower reaches of Yangtze River have been close to warning levels. In the next few days, rainfall will still continue, and authorities remain on high alert for more floods.
Coalition of states is suing over a controversial White House directive on transgender rights. Texas leads the lawsuit involving 10 other states. They oppose the federal order telling public schools to let transgender students use a bathroom that matches their gender identity. Jan Crawford is covering the case that could end up at the Supreme Court. Jan, good morning.
Good morning, Nora. So schools that don't comply with the Obama administration's directive could risk losing their federal funding. Many of the states involved in the suit have conservative leaders. They have previously vowed to defy this directive. They're calling it a threat to student safety.
By forcing through his policies by executive action, President Obama has excluded the voice of the people.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton came out swinging against the White House.
Simply put, the Obama administration is creating new law outside the bounds of the Constitution, making the kind of changes only Congress can make.
The suit accuses the administration of conspiring to turn schools and workplaces into laboratories for a massive social experiment. The 10 other states that have joined Texas in the legal fight include Alabama, Utah, and West Virginia.
We think this is an open and shut case in terms of the law, and we look forward to litigating against the federal government.
The directive was issued after the Justice Department and North Carolina sued each other over a state law requiring transgender people to use the public bathroom that corresponds to the sex on their birth certificate.
They created state-sponsored discrimination against transgender individuals.
The Department of Justice reacted to this latest lawsuit with a statement claiming the federal government has strong legal foundations to uphold the civil rights of transgender Americans. The ACLU also came to the administration's defense, calling the lawsuit a political stunt, adding the real targets here are vulnerable young people and adults who simply seek to live their lives free from discrimination.
Now, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says he's heard from parents and they're concerned about this directive, and they're adding that these states are willing to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court. They have to. Gail?
These protesters are demanding the Department of Corrections work to end the harassment of gay and transgender inmates in state prisons. They say inmates at the Cotton Correctional Facility in Jackson County were harassed by guards and were retaliated against when they reported it. One protester told us it starts with better training for prison staff.
When a prison guard can harass prisoners in a homophobic way or in a transphobic way, then that sort of gives a green light for other people to do the same sort of behavior.
We talked with a spokesman for the Corrections Department who said the complaints were taken seriously and were sent to the DOC's inspector, which is the highest possible level. He also told us no evidence of wrongdoing was found, and the department will continue to look into any specific allegations.
Only on 10 News, one of the people arrested outside Donald Trump's rally is out of jail this morning.
He's Brian Pease, an environmental attorney running for city attorney this year. 10 News reporter Michael Chen caught the moment police took him down. This happened after police had declared an unlawful assembly because protesters, they say, were getting violent. Joining us here in studio is Brian Pease. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So we were trying to listen. It was hard to hear, but in that video, do you say, I'm going to be the city attorney?
No, that wasn't me. Somebody was saying that in the background.
So tell us about what happened. Tell us about the takedown. In fact, let's show first viewers at home the video that you shot from your perspective as police were coming your way.
Am I being ordered to move? I'm not blocking any traffic. I'm in the middle of the road here. Okay.
Well, I was walking backwards and asking, are we being ordered to leave this whole area? What's going on here? And I was walking backwards as the police line was advancing, and then suddenly some of the riot police rushed out from the line and tackled me, as you can see pretty clearly in the video.
So we see you on the ground there. What happened immediately following the arrest?
So immediately following the arrest, it was pretty calm. The officers, they're actually friendly, professional. So I actually knew not some of the officers who tackled me, but a couple of the officers who were there in the area, and they're pretty good guys. They're doing their jobs. But the issue here is that what they were being ordered to do is totally unlawful. You can't tell people. I mean, it was just a few protesters who wanted to hold signs or, have their views heard, and they're already being pushed all the way to Barrio Logan from the convention center. So it's, the assembly that they declared unlawful at the convention center was, that in itself is unconstitutional to just require them to disperse entirely from that entire area. But then pushing them all the way to Barrio Logan, and then you can see that I'm in the middle of a bunch of grass when they decided that I can't be there and I was actually holding a sign that said Brian Pease for city attorney, and I had a megaphone, and I was trying to educate the police on the fact that, look, the reason I'm running for city attorney is to stop the unconstitutional use of force, to stop that's being used against free speech.
So what would you say to people who, when they listen to the video from your perspective, that you sounded like you were antagonizing the police who declared this unlawful? What would you say to them?
I guess people could make their own conclusion from the audio that's on there, but I think my words were something to the effect of, am I being ordered to leave? I was more questioning what was actually happening, because it was pretty surreal to see this huge line of riot police just forcing this small group of protesters further and further down a public street where they have every right under the Constitution and the First Amendment to express themselves, as long as they're not engaging in violence or doing something illegal. And in that case, there's enough police officers there to arrest anybody that's doing anything like that.
Okay.
Watch the spray on the left cam.
Police in Paris fired tear gas at demonstrators. Some responded with rocks and glass bottles. An estimated 18,000 people took to the streets of Paris on Thursday, according to official figures, with thousands of marchers also turning out in cities across France. They're furious about a Labour bill recently forced through the lower house of Parliament by the government without a vote, and they have widespread support.
More than 70% of the French people are in favor of the withdrawal of the Labour bill. It shows, contrary to what I've heard from the mouths of officials, that we are not a minority or a sect or I don't know what.
Union members have stopped work at oil refineries, nuclear power plants and transportation hubs. Train drivers here on France's railways are on strike for the second day, but the national rail company SNCF says that 3 out of 4 long-distance trains and about 6 out of 10 regional ones are still running. It might be a different story for French drivers trying to get around the country, though. Only 2 of the country's 8 oil refineries haven't been blockaded by their staff, and the country has been digging into its emergency reserves since Monday. Prime Minister Manuel Valls says he will not back down.
I respect the CGT union. I know about its history, its total involvement in the history of our country, the resistance, the desire to give rights to workers. But the CGT cannot halt the country. The CGT cannot impose a law.
The Labour bill makes it easier for French employers to lower employee pay, to fire workers and reduce overtime pay. Employers' groups say the law has already been watered down so much they no longer support it, leaving President François Hollande and Prime Minister Valls without much encouragement. Elena Casas, CCTV, Paris.
A cop arrests a kid in a U.S. classroom. More than 1 million views online and counting. Cell phone videos like this have gone viral in the U.S.
I didn't get off the bus, so I didn't do anything wrong.
This student was arrested after he refused to move to the front of the school bus. More than 800,000 views. The bus driver thought the boy was smoking and asked him to move up front. When he wouldn't budge, the driver called the cops.
I'm going to testify in court.
These videos have alarmed many in this country. They wonder, are too many U.S. schools too quick to resort to handcuffs instead of detention? A number of U.S. students and their parents consider school arrests excessive. Last October in Denver, the principal of Northfield High School approached 14-year-old Ashanti Mills. Her offense?
I was wearing a purple bandana. It was much like this, except it was purple. And he said that was, in fact, dress code.
A dress code violation. And for that,
the police came into the office and stood in front of me where I was sitting, and they told me that I was under arrest.
there was an altercation.
They forced my arms behind my back and put handcuffs on me. It's just completely unjust.
Ashanti was charged as a juvenile with third-degree assault and interfering with school officials. Shocking for her and her family, certainly, but a more common occurrence in the U.S. than many people realize. A 2012 study published by the medical journal Pediatrics reported 1 in 3 American youth have been arrested by the age of 23, resulting in a destructive and unhealthy start in life, the authors wrote. The Denver Foundation's Sarah Park says school arrests are on the rise and race appears to be a big factor.
Young people of color are getting suspended or expelled and ticketed and arrested for the same behaviors for which their white peers often receive no consequence.
Critics like Park say this so-called school-to-prison pipeline is priming kids for more serious trouble.
Kids who are suspended or expelled are 3.5 times as likely to end up involved with the criminal justice system within the coming year. You know, it's shocking and it's painful.
Denver authorities say students must be held accountable for their behavior, but recognize it's also important to strike a balance.
We take the cases involving juveniles very seriously. We are very much aware of the lasting implications of being involved in the criminal justice system on our young people.
As for Ashanti, charges against her were dropped. 2 officials involved in her incident left the school soon after.
I didn't know why the police needed to be involved with this. As far as I knew, it was a school matter.
As this video shows, there are other reasons to make a call to police a school's last resort. American students may also be at risk of physical injury, along with psychological ones. Hendrik Sabrandi, CCTV, Denver.
This is a commercial for China's Qiaobi laundry detergent, not a very famous brand. A Chinese woman shoves the product into a black worker's mouth in the midst of their flirting, before suddenly pushing him into a washing machine. What outraged many international viewers online is that when she reopens the machine, a pale Asian man emerges instead, to the woman's delight. The advertisement has been airing in China since at least April, but it only began to cause a sensation last week when it went viral on foreign social network sites. BBC and CNN have slammed it as blatant racism, with many netizens, both Western and Chinese, saying they're appalled and can't believe what they see. We showed the ad to some passerbys on the Chinese street. Most instantly condemned it as racist.
This is too much. What if a foreign laundry ad washed off the skin color of an Asian guy and turned him white? That would be unacceptable to us. Many Chinese companies fail to understand the sensitivity of racism. It's a shame, but it's common in China.
But on reflection, some offered further comments.
I think it might be because that we don't have much history of people, of black people fighting against discrimination here in China. And that's why many people here are lack of the awareness of how sensitive this topic is. But of course, it doesn't mean that Chinese people are against the idea that everyone is equal and should be respected.
Adding to the controversy is the fact that the commercial is almost a complete reproduction of an Italian detergent brand aired 9 years ago. Same music, similar plot. The only difference is that the Italian product turns a white guy black. Infringing intellectual property rights is one thing to be criticized, but some Chinese netizens also questioned why the skin color can only change one way. In an interview with the BBC, Qiaobi's director says he didn't go over the content of the ad carefully enough and admits he didn't consider its racist undertones. Like in any country, Chinese law on advertisement bans discriminative content based on religion, gender, race, and ethnicity. But how this particular case got the approval from the Chinese government to be broadcasted and how the authorities will respond remains to be seen. Han Peng, CCTV, Beijing.
I want to bring up some images of a suicide bomber that was arrested at a checkpoint in Baghdad. Some very dramatic images of the man who was there. There's the bomb that was strapped onto him. But what does that tell you as well? You know, as these offensives continue, there's still, of course, huge danger, particularly within the capital.
Yeah, this really underscores the sort of challenge the Iraqi government is having to deal with in Baghdad for a very, very long time. It must be stressed. There have been a spate of bombings in Baghdad recently, claimed by ISIS, killing more than 200 people. Now, in this video released today by the Iraqi Interior Ministry, you see this man who tried to go through a pedestrian checkpoint going into Al-Qadhamiyya, which is a predominantly Shia part of the Iraqi capital, where there is an important Shia shrine as well. That area is usually, I mean, the entry is very restrictive in terms of people going in and out. Cars and pedestrians are searched. In this case, the man is stopped. They find a suicide vest on it. You can see when the still shots of the vest on the ground that it is full of pieces of metal. When these bombs go off, they throw jagged metal in every direction. The harm they cause is absolutely horrific. And so the Iraqi government, which of course is now conducting an offensive to retake Fallujah, has long felt that many of the car bombs, the suicide vests, are being manufactured in Fallujah, which is really just a half-hour or so drive from the Iraqi capital. So they feel that if they can crush ISIS in Fallujah, the threat to people in the Iraqi capital will be significantly reduced.
And we are following some breaking news out of North Carolina. 2 F-18 fighter jets flying off the coast of Cape Hatteras have crashed in a mid-air collision. All 4 crew members did eject. They have been recovered and they are heading to a medical facility to be evaluated. Reports are that they are alert. The planes were participating in a routine training.
With her face covered to protect her anonymity, the 16-year-old rape victim arrives at a police station in Rio de Janeiro. The girl has told police she was raped by 33 men last Saturday in a shanty town on the west side of the city. Some of the men suspected of raping her put video of the attack on Twitter. Officers investigating the attack say there is clear evidence that she was gang raped.
We aren't certain how many people participated in the act. The victim says 33, some people say 30, others 36. One appears in the images that were shared, the other is the victim's supposed boyfriend, who is thought to have brought her to the location.
News of the attack led to protests in Rio de Janeiro against what campaigners say is a culture of rape in Brazil.
People think rape mostly happens in poor areas, but that's a lie. It's absurd. Rape is happening all over the country. It's in our upbringing. Fathers raise their sons to be womanizers and their daughters to be submissive.
I'm completely outraged, especially because there's a narrative of justification for what happened. Because of the girl's history, her social class, the problems she faces, it seems that she asked to be raped. That is the worst of all of this.
Brazilian rights group Public Policy Forum says that 500,000 sexual assaults take place every year in Brazil. It says that in 2014, Brazilian police recorded a sexual assault every 11 minutes. Brazil's acting president Michel Temer announced talks to discuss new measures to stop violence against women. He wrote on Twitter, "I condemn most forcefully the rape of the teenager in Rio de Janeiro. It is absurd that in the 21st century we should have to live with barbaric crimes such as this." Last year, Brazil's Congress passed new laws to increase sentences for violence against women, but campaigners say that much more needs to be done to change men's attitudes towards women. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.